I don't know when this thing actually starts listening to me. I don't know when you guys actually start listening to me. But welcome to No Driving Gloves. We are in the midst of 6 shows a weekend, so Will is absent again, getting ready for another show. Last week, everybody was buried with, everything going on. Will had a show. I think Derek had a show. It was a mess, and we just couldn't. So we're not supposed to talk about missed shows. So no more missed shows.
Sorry, we missed you.
Yeah. Well,
what's going on, John?
I don't know. I'm sitting here going, boy, that's the way we always start the show, but that's not the way we're supposed to start the show. We're supposed to jump into the meat of the show, and then at the end of the show, for our dedicated listeners, talk about what's been going on with us.
Oh, okay. So, let's change it up.
Yeah, we'll give that a try.
All right. So here's my first question, and it's going to show my age. But at least he's a car collector, and we can talk about his car collection. And maybe even if he hears this, he might want to come on the show. But again, showing my age, have you seen Fred Durst's new look lately?
My iPhone played a Limp Bizkit song the other day.
He's gone full on old man, rocking the gray hair. Like it's pretty intense and pretty cool, actually, to see him up there on stage and doing that and just kind of rocking out the dad, old man, almost grandpa look. It's pretty intense.
And what does that have to do with cars? I know there's got to be a lead in here.
Well, no, it shocked me when I saw a video of him the other day. And of course, like I say, I'm showing my age and John showing his age because, of course, Limp Bizkit. Yeah,
they're canceling.
Not one of the. They're not one of the young. They're not one of the young kid bands anymore. But no, it shocked me. But then it also reminded me that I had heard that he was a car collector. So I decided to just be like, oh, well, yeah, what does his collection, what is he interested in? Turns out it's something we've talked about on the show. He loves station wagons. I mean, it's actually pretty cool. Like I never really gave it much thought, but he's got some pretty cool station wagons. I don't know. Just one of those things where I saw something, it surprised me, it shocked me. It shows my age. And then I realized the man collects station wagons, so he's even cooler than I ever thought he was. Sorry, is that not where you wanted the show to go?
Oh, I wanted the show to go somewhere. I was working on a screen share here.
Trying to share his new look? Or his station wagons, because they're both pretty cool.
It's station wagons.
Ah.
There we go.
There we go.
Now,
honestly, these are some pretty sweet station wagons. I mean, I got to give him some props.
Well, station wagons are the in thing right now. So I've had recent conversations with people looking to buy station wagons, and they're cool because exactly for what you said, because we're old. We grew up with the minivans and we didn't grow up with station wagons. So to us, minivans are blah. Station wagon.
I beg to differ, because I remember as a young kid riding in the station wagon before we got the minivan. So there were station wagons still when we were kids. And if I remember one, you certainly remember them.
Well, the family had a Dodge Aspen station wagon, and my grandfather always had the big Ford station wagon for a while. He had the rear facing seat. He had the Pontiac or Buick that the tailgate sucked under. He had them all the way up to the Parisienne was the last one he had. He never did go to the egg caprices and stuff because he liked the window that retracted into the tailgate, because then he could carry, I guess, things longer. That I don't know what's longer than a station wagon though. But yeah, but they kind of, they aren't really our thing. And I think that's why minivans are not thought of highly by the people just behind us, because that's what they grew up with. And now minivans are beginning to become cool again because there's a new generation jumping into those, and SUVs are hopefully going to become uncool. But at some point they'll become cool too. Oh, I guess that's how the car hobby works, isn't it? You buy your dad's car.
Yeah, I like to buy like my great grandpa's cars.
Yeah, but you're odd.
Yeah. So what if you were going to get a station wagon, what would it be? And I want to phrase that: vintage collectible and more modern. So 2 station wagons.
Vintage collectible, more modern. So
like one that's old, vintage, say 70s era, whatever you choose. And then one more modern, say post 90s.
Anything budget not a concern?
Anything, budget no concern.
Well, and see, I don't know if this falls into modern or old, so I'm going to start with it. And then you tell me, is it modern or old? But about 87 or 88, Mercedes had the AMG Hammer station wagon. And that's, to me, always been kind of one of the coolest station wagons. To heck with your CTS V wagons and stuff like that. I like that. And I think, going older, if I'm going 70s, and believe it or not, I kind of toyed with something like that, I would do keeping it reasonable, and it would be the same on both ends. I would do like a 72 or 73 Olds Vista Cruiser, and I would like to do a 95 Olds Vista Cruiser. So there's your 2 ends. I'm going 95 as the modern. I'm going 72 as kind of the vintage. Your choice. See, I just like the little panoramic roof that you get over the back seat on the Vista Cruiser.
Right. Well, I guess if I was going, let's see, where do I go first? Let's go vintage first. It would have to be I think it was early 50s, like 51, 52 style era. The Pontiac Streamliner station wagon. I really dig that thing. It's pretty sweet. Round, bulbous. I just like it. And then more modern, I've oddly, and probably some of the listeners have heard me say this, I'm not a huge Mopar guy, especially more modern Mopar. I had a Dodge Dakota for a while. Wasn't a big fan of quality on that. But I have always thought the styling of the Dodge Magnum was pretty freaking cool. And I think if I had a more modern station wagon, it would probably be a Dodge Magnum.
I can understand that. I mean, the Magnum's cool to look at. I don't know if you've ever been in one. It really is not the roomiest station wagon.
We're not talking about roominess or quality or anything here. That's what the Pontiac would be for, the roominess, because you can play a football game inside of that thing. That would be the roomy car.
We've got comments, and maybe this should be it. Would you have the faux wood grain on your station wagons?
So oddly, with my dad and the restorations we've done, we've actually we've done some of the faux wood. I think one of the brands of it back in the day was like Dynock, was called the material that the company was Dynock or something like that. And it's not bad if it's done right. It looks pretty good, and I don't mind the ones that are actual wood station wagons. I think we've talked about it on the show before. They're a pain in the butt because you actually have to treat them more like a wood boat than you do a car. But I don't mind the faux wood look. I think it's kind of cool in some respects. Now, not on a modern vehicle. I think wasn't it the PT Cruiser that came out with a wood sided version with
there
vinyl?
were decal kits you could get for your PT Cruiser. I don't believe it came from the factory. There was a conversation somewhere that I was in that what was the last car that came with that, and I can't remember. It was much more modern than you thought, but
I think it would have to be one of the 80s.
No, it can't.
It could be one of the 80s wagons, maybe early 90s.
No, the Buick Roadmaster and that came with the faux wood grain all the way up to 95. But I can't think of what came after that. It was something into the 2000s, actually.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. Oof. I can't remember what it is. But the last car I started to take apart at White Post was like a 65 Galaxy 500 wagon that was, every station wagon seems to be green with the faux wood grain. And that was, 15 years ago. That was a long time ago. But that was kind of at the beginning of the station wagon craze. But, that's kind of how White Post was. I remember having a 190 SL in there, and the assistant manager at the time going, why are they putting so much money? I mean, $100,000 restoration. And at the time you could buy a 190 SL for 28 grand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I like Patrick's comment here. 1972 Chevrolet Kingswood estate wagon with a big block, maybe a big block of concrete in the back. So when you drive it off the bridge, it just.
Well, I'm going to jump off. I'm going to use Patrick's big block comment to go to the Facebook comment today that we had, and referring to the article about take that big block out, put an electric motor in there. I mean, you've got a wagon, you've got a huge amount of room for batteries in it, and put a couple of electric motors in it. Tesla, or somewhere I saw a Tesla crate motor, and I was here listening to an interview with Jay Leno on Spike's Car Radio from a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the way Tesla designed and built their own motor, which you think it's an electric motor, but he got really into the weeds on that one. I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, let's do an electric station wagon.
Yeah, the painful thing about, and I don't know if the picture that the Detroit News used for this cover art for this article that No Driving Gloves was tagged in, coincidentally also by Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. But I really, it would be painful to me if the Lincoln that is pictured is getting an electric motor swap. It's just. I think I'm having a tough time embracing the idea of early cars having electric motor swaps. Now, that's not obviously there are early cars that were electric. I mean, electric cars, as we've talked about on this show, have been around very, very long time, and were actually higher selling cars in the turn of the century, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, than internal combustion. But taking something like a 30s era Lincoln, which is a beautiful car, and switching it over to an electric motor, I don't know that I can handle that quite yet.
Well, you have the same issue with that as if Will took the same car and chopped and channeled and put a LS drivetrain in it and etc.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what this. And I was going to joke with Will when he was talking about his schedule tonight, and I was going to say, "Dang!" And we were going to talk about electric resto mods tonight. So I'm really, everybody knows I'm a big fan of electric vehicles and things like that, and I kind of like the idea of there's a couple of companies that do it quite often. I mean, for about 12, 15 grand, you can buy a mini moke now in the United States that's fully electric. I can't think of the name of the company that I follow on Facebook, and they're doing electric conversions to everything. That's what I saw is the Tesla motor that I was talking about. They now have motor mounts for it, so it'll bolt in place of basically an LS motor. Drop it right in, so you can use your LS motor mounts in the car to put an electric drivetrain in. I think it's the way it's going. You know, we talked to Will a couple of weeks ago. Was when do you think cars are going to start showing up at SEMA that are electric? If we actually get to have SEMA this year, could be really cool.
Didn't Will say they'd already had a couple of years ago? There was one or two that showed up.
Well, they've been trickling in. I mean, I've got a friend here in Birmingham that built a 67 Mustang that was all electric, and that had to be. Since you know me, I date things with either my girlfriends or my cars. Good thing I don't change girlfriends as often as cars, but I actually think I was dating Diana. So that would have been 10 or 12 years. It would have been 12 years ago that he would have had a fully electric Mustang.
So I guess my question comes down to, and Patrick, I noticed again, commented that Model T electrification is becoming very common. I'm trying to figure out how to even dive into this subject, but I guess maybe I'm too much of a purist, and I guess if I'm hot rodding the car and I'm doing what Will would do, where I'm chopping it, I'm channeling, I'm pie cutting, I'm laying stuff down, I'm really changing the whole styling of the car and not trying to keep it original or looking anywhere near original, because I want this very sleek show car, then running an electric motor instead of an LS swap or something to that effect, or if you're in the Ford situation, doing some kind of Ford Coyote swap into the vehicle, I could probably see it. I guess I'm struggling having a car that looks completely original that has an electric motor swap. And that's a tough one. Now, again, going back, I guess it can't be said that it would be maybe complete heresy in some way, because actually the Detroit Electric Company towards the end were actually buying up bodies from other cars, companies that were building bodies for other car companies, and essentially putting Detroit Electric drive units into those. So you had a late 20s, early 30s looking gas automobile body, chassis, all of that, but Detroit Electric had purchased it and retrofitted it with, or basically, just installed their electric motor, batteries, drivetrain, all of that. So in some ways it is in the spirit of some electric car companies from back in the day. So maybe there's a way to take it with a grain of salt there, that, it's just kind of alluding back to something that was being done a little bit back in the day.
I think we had, and we're probably going to have to go back to one of our teens episodes, that if electric was more dependable, that was probably the way the car was going to go back in 1900. But, battery technology was nowhere near what obviously gasoline technology was, and that killed it. But if you had to, sounds stupid, if you had today's battery technology in 1900, we'd never even be talking about gas cars. It's EV West developed the Tesla crate motor that fits small block Chevy. So In EV Best is who I was thinking about. I've seen them do conversions. You name it. I think 356 Porsches, Fiat Jollies. I mean, everything. They're Ferraris. Take a 328, put an electric drivetrain in it. But to get us off of the electric, since I enjoy these change of topic things. Obviously, I'm following a lot of the Ford Maverick groups because I still have an order in for a Ford Maverick. Not sure if I'm going to let it go or not. But it... Are
you going to rebadge it when you get it?
Why?
Because it shouldn't be called a Maverick.
Well, I'll park it next to my Mach-E and...
Okay.
But now I forgot. Oh, the article, and I think I saved the article. Let me see if it's in one of these 8,000 tabs. Yeah, here it is. 2022 Maverick pricing is less expensive than the Model T adjusted for inflation. If you adjust the 1908 Model T that sold for $850 to today's money, what did they say? The Model T would sell for about $26,000, and the base Ford Maverick pickup truck with destination charges comes in right at $21,000.
That's impressive. I'll give it to them. That's impressive that they've kept it that affordable.
Even the one that I spec'd out for me, XLT trim, 4-wheel drive, the 2-liter EcoBoost motor, 4,000-pound towing capacity, which is the max for it, $28,900. So, it's really, I think Ford's got a winner if this thing comes out and is actually deliverable. If it doesn't have Bronco problems. And I saw some pictures of it, of the prototypes now next to the last of the Ford Rangers, the 05, 06 Ford Rangers, and it's almost the exact same size as the Rangers. So it's kind of that perfect mini truck that I've wanted, and I think the world's wanted. And so I give it to Ford. I hope this thing's successful because everybody will jump on that bandwagon and we can have mini trucks again.
So do you just feel that the new Ford Ranger is too big?
Yes. The new Ford Ranger... The new Ford Ranger is as big as an 05 F-150. It's trucks are huge now.
Trucks are getting bigger and bigger. Yeah. I get it. I parked my 2018 Chevy next to my dad's 97 GMC, and my dad was like, "My God, they've made trucks big." It's just overall bigger, and you can even see that in 1 year. At work, we had a 2020 Chevy 2500 series, and we just got the new 2021. Well, not just, but earlier this year we got the 2021 in. Parked them next to each other, and the 2021 was a good inch and a half taller than the 2020 2500 series.
Yeah,
like that 1 year. Very little body. Not really any styling. 1 year it just got bigger.
That's my big problem. I almost think that the Ranger might be as big as my 2012 F-150. I know I've seen pictures of the new Ford Ranger, again, by 05, 06 F-150s, and it almost dwarfs those. There is definitely, I think, a need, especially if you don't live in Texas or something, and you don't have acres of parking lot. You've got to maneuver around the city. Try to maneuver a Ford Ranger around New York if you've got to do some deliveries. Even around Chicago or any downtown. It's a big truck. And that's one reason I think the Transit Connect is such a huge seller. You can't buy them really that move people, but cargo, they're all over the place because they're nice, tiny. They whip in, whip out, great vehicles. And I think that's the problem with the Mercedes Metris is they went it for the we need to put a 4x8 piece of plywood in the back. Flower shops don't care if you can put 4x8 sheets of plywoods in the back. They care whether or not we can get in and out of that church parking lot quickly and things, things like that. So I'm for shrinking cars. I mean, one of the biggest complaints I would have about my Mini is it's big. And compare it to my ex-girlfriend Amanda's Mini. It's big. She had a 13. I've got a 20. And in 7 years, I mean, the thing just got big. I mean, it's nice, but it's it reminds me a lot of the CRX, but it's big. I mean,
well, it just reminds me of the old saying, if you find yourself homeless, go get a 1-bedroom Buick. All right. They're just.
Oh, every time people talk to me about that, there's that YouTube video out there. Now I'll have to dig it, put it on the Facebook page about the guy that's living in his car, but he's living in his Porsche. So, it makes a big deal about, he's living in his car. It's that old thing. Oh, he's living out of his car, but his car's a Porsche, Yes, you make your decisions.
They could do like a whole, we should come out with the no driving gloves version of Cribs, but where it's your car.
Why did you say that publicly?
Oh, crap. Yeah, I got to hold those back, don't I?
Yeah, somebody like me might steal it.
Man. Well, John's going to steal that. All right, well, there we go. So how long will it take you to electric convert your Maverick?
If I wanted to do that, I'd just buy it that way.
Are they offering electric Mavericks?
I know they're offering hybrid. I believe they are.
I apologize. I'm not up on my Maverick availability options.
Type this thing in here. It's not official, but the rumor is that they will probably do an electric Maverick. That's what I thought. They do have a hybrid version coming out that is mainly electric. But I think a 100% electric would be right around the corner. I'll bet it's kind of a progression with Ford. We had the Mach-E introduction. Now we've got the Lightning introduction. That's, the electric F-150. And I would see that being followed up by the electric Maverick. I mean, it's.
Now, here's a question. Do they offer it? See, again, apologize. I haven't looked up all the options on it. Are they offering it with a stick shift, standard transmission?
Nobody offers anything. I think there's 18 cars that are still available with an actual stick shift.
I feel like it needs to have a stick shift. I feel like it needs to have a standard transmission.
I think it's a 10-speed automatic.
Why? And we've had the conversation on the show, but I just feel like it would, well, if we're going to electric, it doesn't matter because do you really, electric and a standard shift just doesn't jive. So
well, technically electric really doesn't have gears.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying
it has forward and it has reverse and it goes just as fast either way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I'm just, there's so many things going through my head right now with things you've said, which like shrinking cars, getting on that topic. And I guess I like the idea of that. And
it's never going to happen.
I bought a micro car. So, hey,
now
shrinking cars, there we go.
It's never going to happen. And as we'll just leave it at that. Keith Martin even figured that out. He learned to drive in a Bug-Eye Sprite, so he bought his kid a Bug-Eye Sprite from an article that he published, the publisher of Sports Car Market. And he realized that was the dumbest thing he probably has ever done in his life, because not only is a Bug-Eye Sprite slow compared to modern standards, a Bug-Eye Sprite will almost fit in my Mini. It's so tiny. It's just, flat dangerous, and people aren't going to smaller cars. They want to go to bigger cars,
bigger and bigger cars.
Because it's safer and safer and safer. Mm-hmm. You got to make the Mini bigger so that it can stand up to your new Chevy 2500, etc. Yeah, so they're never going to shrink. The problem's going to be is how big can we make them and put them on, fit them on the roads. Well, what is the maximum width? I mean, I haven't looked, but I would almost bet there's a few vehicles out there, maybe trucks, that are as wide as an 80s Countach. I mean, it's.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'll have to measure mine. That would be an interesting comparison to see. But I think you've touched on something interesting and it's something I don't think I've ever thought about in my, automotive history, history of technology world of study, but is the impact of those federal crash standards, federal safety standards for, vehicle crash testing, and how that impacted, pun intended, maybe, the size of a vehicle. Because to add those crumple zones and add the structural integrity and safety, those cars wound up, they had to grow to make that safety, to get it incorporated. And it would be very difficult. I mean, I have seen not only the crash tests of the smart cars, but I have seen an actual wreck involving a smart car. And the way they made that car so it would meet safety standards, where it basically, breaks apart and the passenger compartment becomes a capsule that tries to keep the person safe. And the one wreck I have seen on the road involving one, it did exactly that. The front end was over there somewhere, and the passenger compartment and the rear axle was over on the side of the road over here, and the people were fine. But it is definitely not as safe as driving around in a Chevy Suburban, let's say. So that's actually kind of an interesting avenue of automotive history to go down, because that is a big part of why cars have grown.
Well, it's so many laws dictate automotive styling. You've got I can't remember where like you said, the size. Then you've got like the pedestrian crash standards that came out that your front. That's why we really don't have wedge shaped cars anymore. You've got to be able to make contact with the pedestrian above the kneecaps but below the waist or something, so that they have a better chance of surviving with minimal injury. The seat belts, the side impact crash standards, because go back CRX, I can sit there and I can rest my arm shoulder height on the window and it's comfortable. The Mini, my elbows above my shoulder in that, because they've raised the height of the doors just for side impact protection. It's a lot of the styling that exists is due to safety regulations. And and it's not a new avenue. You'd be familiar with it. The 57 Chrysler 300C is the first car to have quad headlamps, because the government dictated you had to have a single, what were those, 7.25-inch bulb or something. And that's what manufacturers had to integrate into their car for years. And then they finally agreed that they could do the two separate 5.5-inch whatever beams, and the 57 300C was the first car to do it. And if you look at everything in the late 50s, all of a sudden everybody had the quad headlamps. You jump to the 80s, all of a sudden they approved the flush halogen lights for the US, for use in the US. And once that happened, pop-ups went away. Pop-ups were there on supercars for aerodynamics. Now all of a sudden we can streamline the headlamps into the cars, and you can have this cool looking, integrate it with the body. And now, I think Hyundai's done a wonderful thing in the new Santa Cruz and the Santa Fe, where they've hidden the headlights completely behind the grill. You can't even see. It's kind of the new pop-up headlamps. But that's all dictated by what the government lets people do. And I just read an article on Porsche headlamps in Europe and how they have like 38 different beams in them, and they can dim and point. And, if you have oncoming traffic, it dims the lights. It's going to affect the oncoming traffic, but still keeps everything else just as bright. It's, all this safety's dictated by the government, and nothing wrong with it. I'd probably be dead multiple times if it wasn't for safety in the cars. And I know many friends of mine that would definitely be dead without the safety. But it also dictates styling. And I really think the manufacturers do a good job with that. It sacrifices some looks and things in automobiles, but for what their limits are, I mean, you've got this diagram that you've got to build around, and they do a nice job of doing that.
Yeah, and that's the big thing with anything with engineering and design, styling of a car. All of those standards have to come in, but it's interesting being able to talk to designers and engineers on a fairly regular basis, with the job that I do, the Corvette team, engineers, designers, and, that has to be met. But then what they'll all or what most of them will tell you is it's actually kind of cool to see the process happen and how much science dictates everything. And you think from a design aspect, science doesn't play into it because it's the artistic end of it, and it's making the car look good. But all of that looking good has to be aerodynamic, and it has to be, it has to move the air around it, especially on a car like a Corvette. But on any car, aerodynamic styling is key to meeting some of those federal standards. I mean, you've got gas mileage that can be fuel consumption gas mileage that can be impacted by poor aerodynamic design. And it comes down to the designer might design something, they put it in a clay model, they put it in the wind tunnel, and all of a sudden the wind tunnel and the science says, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Let's change that. And from what I have learned in working with some of the designers and engineers is, man, there are parts on a car, specifically on a Corvette, that you think are just the most beautiful part. And, the designer did just such an amazing job of drawing this thing out and getting it so perfect. And the designer sits back and goes, no, the original design was different. That's for aerodynamics. We had to change the look of it and make it work aerodynamically. And the aerodynamics and nature actually made the part more beautiful than the designer originally did. I mean, and I find that kind of story to be extremely cool and interesting in the automotive world.
Well, and the mechanic will have something to say about the designer. So
yeah.
And Patrick again commented, and I popped it up there on the screen for a while if you're actually watching the video footage. Science is art and art is science. And it's really true. I mean, it takes, I say quite often, art is marketing. If you can sell your product or sell yourself, but it's, there's a lot that goes behind it. And I guess I agree with that statement. I like that statement. Maybe that should be on a No Driving Gloves t-shirt. Which, by the way, I do think we have a Cafe Press or something. Not Cafe Press. Who do we have? What? Teespring store? Well, I think we have a Teespring store with a few t-shirts on it. I forget about that. I put it together one day and I haven't done much with it.
Wow.
But you
didn't even let the co-hosts know we had it. So.
Oh, I probably did.
It's probably in one of those emails. It's buried somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in the middle of this show. You can go ahead and buy us a coffee if you go to nodrivinggloves.com/coffee. and go ahead and help support us a little bit.
What if they want to buy us a latte, John? What if they wanted to buy us a latte?
It's only coffee, and you can buy us multiple coffees. And if you have
yeah, there you go. If you buy us multiple coffees, you've bought us a latte coffee. So I'm working on the dad jokes. How am I doing?
Yeah, it's a new dad thing.
Exactly.
And I just saw something. Oh, I was looking for the show's artwork today, and there was something I came across about dads and cars and whatever. Maybe I should have used it. But the artwork behind me.
I was going to say, speaking of artwork, there's artwork behind you.
Yeah, it's time for a change. And it's not that we're going to get rid of Will or anything. We want to kind of find that fourth wheel for the show. We put it up on Facebook. Was talking to somebody again this week, and a conversation was interesting. And I said, this is an interesting idea. And I threw it out to the guys, and we voted on it. And we'd like to bring a female co-host on and start getting some female perspective on the car hobby. So if you know a female, or if you're female, I mean, we're going to be a little sexist on that. But I guess if it turned out to be a really good guy, we'd probably take him too. But we just want to have that. You wouldn't have to be regular or anything. We'd all discuss and work out everything. But if you know cars or know somebody who knows cars, shoot us an email at No Driving Gloves. I don't think I've got a little graphic with our email on it. But
Lord. Well, you ruined it.
You can find us anywhere. No Driving Gloves at gmail.com. No Driving Gloves, Facebook, whatever. Just shoot us a message somewhere, and we can go ahead and take care of you. And, we're going to look, might not be immediate, but we'll go through our Rolodexes, but go through yours. Help a guy out. And when I was putting together the ad I put on Facebook, it really highlighted why I wanted to do this. Because I searched car women on a couple of my free graphics programs where I can get, non-copyrighted artwork. And it was almost impossible to find a respectful picture of a woman in a car. I'm not going to say I'm against it. I mean, some of them are very attractive, sprawled out across their cars and laying on the hoods and scratching them and everything. But it's not fair. I mean, I want to bring, I know some very intelligent car women, and it's time we did our part. There's very few. I went through car podcasts, and there's a few women out there on car podcasts, and we kind of really, we really want that. So.
Yeah. Well, and look back. I mean, and all of a sudden I'm blanking on her name. I had it earlier because I knew I was going to bring it up when we talked about this. But we had the young lady that does Femcanic Garage.
And she's actually who first popped through my head.
Yeah. I mean, amazing woman in the industry, knows her stuff. Those are the type of, people we'd be looking for. And I mean, I mentioned on the show the big thing I was talking about a couple months ago when Will was talking about a big photo shoot stuff is that I had been selected for Sports Car Market 40 under 40 this year in the collector car hobby world, whatever they call it. But pick up that issue. And I'm not saying, read about me or look at my photos. I don't care. The cool thing about it, look at the number of young women on that cover. It is impressive. And I know a few of those women that are on that cover, and they are extremely important to this hobby, to this industry. And they are the future. They are as much of the future of this that I am, that John is, that Will is, that all of the young people in this, that are coming up are. And it's extremely important to have them involved and have them out there, as John said, being a professional face of the industry and the hobby. and, not just being that calendar picture that, everybody is so used to. And I'm proud to share the 40 under 40 spots with all of those women. I don't know them all, but I know, like I say, I know a few of them, and they are impressive women in this field, and they know their stuff, and it's awesome. Sorry, didn't mean to rant.
Oh, I'm trying to look up the episode and it's not coming up with there it is. Jamie Blasman.
Jamie, yes. Yeah.
Episode 155, we interviewed her. And like I said, she crossed my mind, but she's busy with her own podcast. But I'm going to reach out to her. I bet you she knows a couple of people that might want to try that position. So, Jamie, if you happen to be listening, reach out to me. But I'll shoot you an email tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah.
And see what's going on in both of our worlds. So, covered a lot of things tonight, Derek. What else? This is where I guess we're supposed to do that personal stuff that we used to do at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, we're getting used to this new format, folks. Sorry if there's been some dead time or downtime, dead air as they call it on the airwaves.
I slapped some. I'm really enjoying my car. I'm glad I spent the money. Put that on Facebook in the post. I did realize the first word in my Facebook post yesterday was wrong. I'll go back and edit that. But I put a picture up a couple of weeks ago. The last car modification, frivolous modification I did to a car is I put clear corner markers in my Porsche. And I bought my pickup truck 9 years ago today that I traded the Porsche on. So I sold the Porsche 9 years ago. That's how long it's been since I've done a frivolous car modification, at least for me. And it's got the cell phone, cool little cell phone thing in these little door pockets and stuff. But I did the vinyl stuff. We've had a couple of vinyl wrappers on here, but I became a wrapper this week and I laid down some fake carbon fiber and some bright red pinstriping type stuff on my Mini and feel pretty good about it. It's a custom design that I'm sure some other Minis have it. I hadn't seen it before, but it's not the standard. So that's kind of what I've been up to. I told you that car was going to get me back into the car world. So
you didn't do a no big no driving gloves logo on it somewhere?
No, I should probably do the big no driving gloves like we've got in the corner, over the back rear third of the car at an angle or something.
That'd be sweet. Well, I don't normally talk, or I guess I do bring up work occasionally on the show, but I'm going to bring it up tonight. I was in Nashville all day today at the Adventure Science Center. If you live near Nashville or you're traveling to Nashville, and after next weekend, not this weekend, but after next weekend, highly recommend looking to see if while you're in town, the Adventure Science Center is open, because they're doing a really cool exhibit called Car Culture. And they're using 7 Corvettes from the National Corvette Museum to do it. So we took 7 Corvettes down today, installed them in their galleries, and it is going to be a really cool exhibit. So if you're in the area of Nashville, again, after I think it opens next weekend officially, look it up, check it out, because it was a blast helping install it. And I think it's going to be a cool exhibit. So I'm gonna pump that for tonight, because we spent a whole day installing it, and they're gonna finish up doing the graphics and stuff, and it's just going to be really, really cool. There's 7 Corvettes, so not exactly one of every generation represented, but it's pretty cool. We've got production version of Corvettes down there. We've got race, full on race car Corvettes down there. Just talking about car culture, and they're connecting it to the history of the Adventure Science Center, basically what was going on in their history in Nashville and what was going on in car culture at the time through Corvette's eyes. So, go see it because it's going to be cool.
Where was that again?
It's at the Adventure Science Center in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, I always hate it when somebody comes on and they start talking about something and plugging something, and they only mentioned it at the very beginning. And you go, well, you hear it at the beginning, Adventure Science Center. And by the end, 7 Corvettes, multi-generations. Oh, where was that again?
Mm-hmm.
That's always nice when you recap. That's a hint for all you podcasters and even some of you radio DJs out there. But
again, that's located in Nashville, Tennessee at the Adventure Science Center.
And how long does that go?
Next week, for? What I'll do next week is I'll have the hours, admissions, and all of that for the Adventure Science Center. How's that?
How long is the exhibit?
It will run through November, so it's a short temporary exhibit. So you're going to have to get to Nashville to see it, and then while you're in Nashville, I mean, if you're traveling anyway, about an hour and 15 minutes, depending on how you drive, an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, and traffic, because Nashville traffic's horrible. Come on up to the Corvette Museum and check out what we're doing.
I keep seeing the Corvette Museum pop up in a lot of Facebook feeds. I don't know. I think Corvettes have become popular in my Facebook feed for some reason.
It's because Corvettes are popular, John.
It's probably the new Stingray Bar and Grill.
Yeah, come check out the new Stingray Bar and Grill.
So
it's delicious. We have a chef. It's amazing.
Well, I don't have anything else on the horizon. Maybe window tint for my Mini, but we'll talk about that if that ever happens. But you got anything else, Derek? Or otherwise, we're close to an hour. I'm going to go ahead and cut out of here at 50 minutes for a change.
I don't have anything exciting. I haven't bought any new cars recently.
I got one. I just read.
Oh, man.
I got to find it.
Newsflash.
It kind of is because it was just announced. Okay. I was worried I couldn't spell his name all of a sudden. Some big news for today. This is a quote. Thank you to my family, my parents, our members, employees, supporters, investors, and of course, enthusiasts everywhere. The future is bright for our mission to save driving and expand car culture for future generations. Onward and upward. Can you guess who made that quote? We've talked about him recently, multiple times.
McKeel Haggerty.
Yep. They are merged with a financial group, as I understand it, and will become a publicly traded company, if they're not already, because a car company they merged with is publicly traded. And what was the valuation they put on it? 3.13 billion dollars is what this merger's worth. So they got money to buy your Concours. So if you've got a Concours on the market, call or any other thing, I'll be calling them for sponsorship opportunities or possibly job opportunities. But me and my resume have never made it too far. Probably because we badmouth them on the podcast.
Blacklisted.
Yeah. Well, that's a good show. And he's always got that S-Class.
Maybe that's a topic we need to do coming up in the future. Best cars on TV shows.
Ooh, I think we'll schedule that one so we can have some hopefully a big commentator role and get some crowd reaction on that one too, because
I've already got like 5 in my head.
I honestly don't know what the best. I had a question for you before we go. Last question, I promise. Yeah, sure.
We're going to drag it out to 60 minutes, folks.
Do you ever watch, and if anybody's in the chat room, please comment too. Do you ever watch a movie or a TV show just because of the car? Not the topic, not the plot, just because the car's in it.
No, I've never done that.
Nothing. I mean, I use the example of the original Gone in 60 Seconds. Do you watch that because of the plot or because of the stunt driving and the cars in it?
Oh, wow. You might have just got me. Okay, you're right. I watched the original Gone in 60 Seconds. For the cars. Yeah, more for the cars and because I mean it's really I don't even know if you can call it a B movie. It might be even a C or a D movie. But you're right. Yes, it is. It is about the car. But that's what that movie was intended to be. It was about the cars. I don't really think it was ever about the acting or the plot or any part of that. It's kind of like Two-Lane Blacktop. You don't watch Two-Lane Blacktop because it's interesting. There's like 30 lines in the whole movie. The purpose of the movie is to hear the engine in the car running while they're driving it and drag racing it. That was the whole point of the movie. So I own Two-Lane Blacktop as well.
And that's why you constantly have Corvette Summer on rotating reel at the Corvette Museum, right?
Nope.
I was wondering because somebody threw out to me the other day, and I'm sorry, it's a mini thing, to watch Pork Pie, which I'd never heard of. And it is the highest grossing movie filmed in New Zealand in the United States. The highest grossing movie in the United States that was filmed in New Zealand. It grossed like $800,000.
And what is it called?
Pork Pie. It is available on Tubi for free.
Pork, like the pig, like pork.
Yes. Yeah.
Pie. Okay.
And it's got a mini in it. And that's why it was suggested to me. It was thrown to me on a mini group. And I haven't watched more than the first 5 minutes of it. So
now there's actually
it has 100 rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So
well, there you go.
But so she called me out and said, "You watching it because of the car?" Well, that's why it was suggested to me. And then I pointed out to her that there's a reason I own every DVD from the Prisoner DVD box set. So 20 some DVDs, and I probably have a couple $100 into them, is because in the opening credits, there's a Lotus 7. Never appears in the show, only in the opening credits. So yeah, I'm guilty of it. I was just wondering how many car people might be guilty of watching. I mean, who watched Hardcastle and McCormick for Hardcastle and McCormick or Hardcase and McCormick? It was, yes, I know the show was Hardcastle and McCormick, but his nickname in the show was Hardcase. They watched it for the Cody Coyote, which was that modified McLaren kit car that all the interior shots that you ever saw were actually of the executive producer's Ferrari. But, we watched that for that. We watched, Dukes of Hazzard for the General Lee. Now we watch Knight Rider for Kit, but David Hasselhoff too. But
yeah, so that show was all about the Hoff, man. Come on.
If it wasn't for that show, the Hoff would have never been that stellar star in Germany. But now it's just what I was wondering what your thoughts on that were, if you would actually ever, or if that's just an odd thing that I do. And
well, I guess but to expand on it, because I like old movies. And I'm talking old movies like black and white, old movies. And I will say that I watch them because I find some of the old actors and actresses to be very interesting to watch them and just even the plots back then, because for someone who's a historian, of course, you can learn a lot from what movies at the time were about because they're relevant to what was going on at the time. And obviously movies from the 30s, 40s, there's old cars in them. And so I constantly am on the lookout for what cars appear in them. And probably one of my really kind of favorite early movies to watch, and part of it is because of the car that's in it, is a movie called Topper, Topper, Topper. and it's got a really cool customized Buick in it. The car still exists. I guess in some ways I'll say, unfortunately, Gilmore, the oil company, got their hands on it and modified it even more. And it doesn't look, in my opinion, as nice as it looked in the movie. But it's a really cool car. And the movie's kind of cool, too. It's got an interesting plot, interesting twist. And it's just a fun movie to watch. So there are movies I will watch, I guess, unintentionally for the cars, but I watch them because I'm interested initially, and then I start finding the cars in them or seeing the cars. I didn't even know Topper actually had the car as a main character in Topper. And when I first went to watch it, I didn't know that. And then I just kind of got really interesting watching it. So if you're an early car person, I definitely recommend watching old movies and TV shows.
And while you were saying that, because I drift, that's one reason I like the original Fast and the Furious from the 50s, because of the cars in it and the shots of Pebble Beach in the early days, the first 1 or 2 years. But then it got me thinking of the Fast and the Furious. Who the heck went and saw that movie and say part 1 and 2 and maybe even 3 for the plot? No, they went for the cars, right? There's a reason that movie was made, and it was made around the cars. So you went to see the cars, and then eventually it did actually build this huge storyline that culminated with putting a Fiero in space. Oh, spoiler alert. The latest movie, they put a Fiero in space.
But this needs to be a topic for another show, because number one, we're over an hour now. We drug it out, but there are so many TV shows and movies that is exactly, the car is intended to be the star, or in some way one of the stars. I mean, I think of Nash Bridges back in the late 90s, I guess, mid-late 90s, I guess it was. Don Johnson, of course, famous from Miami Vice and some cool cars there, but Don Johnson had the 71 CUDA.
Yeah, made that a multi-million-dollar car too.
Exactly. But it wasn't like, second thought on what the car is going to be. No, it's going to be this really cool muscle car, and it gives Don Johnson's character a backstory. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Look for the TV episode of No Driving Gloves, or TV car episode, in the next couple of weeks.
Coming soon to an internet near you.
But buy us a coffee, nodrivinggloves.com/coffee to look us up. You can go nodrivinggloves.com, Facebook, No Driving Gloves, YouTube. I mean, everything. Just go to nodrivinggloves.com and there's everything there. All of our shows. This is show 182. We've been doing it for a few years. We've got some great stuff coming up around the corner. So I'm going to get out of here for tonight, Derek.
Same here.
Let me see if I can push this out. Oh, we got one last comment. Let me see if it's worth.
It's Patrick again talking about used Model Ts that Buster Keaton used to break apart in his movies.
Well, okay. You see, I can't read. It's really, really small on my screen.
See, I got mine like big right over here, so I know what's going on.
Look, my fingers disappear. Well, I'm out of here.
Yeah, it's time to go.